let's talk about Brandon Staley.
Oh, that's right.
We gotta talk about, because Brandon Staley got fired by the Chargers. Brandon Staley and the GM Telesco, they both got fired after that Thursday night game.
Yeah, so we have to pour one out and say some we have to. It's kind of like that do that in memoriam thing at the end of the Oscars. We gotta put his picture up and talk about what his career was. So Brandon Staley, I wasn't going to watch the game on Thursday night because it's the Raiders and the Chargers are starting Easton Stick at quarterback. So I certainly wasn't gonna watch it. But I looked at my phone. It was the first half. It was 42-0. and I'm watching so I go back and watch the highlights. The and you see all the stuff on social media where the Chargers quit. This is what it looks like when they quit on their coach. Like, boy, they really must hate this guy, blah, blah, blah. And so they fired him the next day, which I gotta say, like, the Chargers, it's better late than never, but I really thought they were just going to go the rest of the season. Nah, we're not going to fire him in season. I thought they were just going to stick this out for the next month while the whole thing falls apart. And every week in the press conference, Brandon Staley is getting pissed off and yelling at a reporter. I wondered, I was impressed that they were like, all right, you know what? Enough of this. They fire him and the general manager. So, yeah, we wanted to pour one out for Brandon Staley because let me tell you something. Usually the Chargers are usually in the late game on Sunday. They're usually so it's usually Sunday around 6:45. You know what I mean, Clark? You're watching the red zone. And it's like, all right, how are the Chargers going to try to blow it today? How are they going to do it? And, just the greatest hits of Brandon Staley going for it on fourth down in your own territory when you've got the lead in the fourth quarter. Why not? It was so much fun. I got so much enjoyment out of, all right, what's Staley doing? What's going on? What's happening? I know he's up to something. And then, Clark, they just took they took all the gasoline out of him, man. He just stopped going for it on fourth down this year. And it just, I kind of felt bad for him, man. If you're going to go out swinging. And, I feel like he didn't get to go out on his own terms. He just kind of fell into the background. It's like, oh man, everybody's shaming me for all these fourth downs. I guess I'll stop going for it. And it's like, no, man, it's the one thing that distinguished you from everybody else.
Yeah. Well, for the people, so the podcast used to be called something different, and we did that for a couple of years anyway. So, and I'm just going to miss the content that Brandon Staley just kept delivering. Just content, not every single week, but just multiple times during a season. He'd go for it on fourth down, and it's just like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And so I'm going to miss that. And then the funny thing is, and I'm trying to think of examples of, him going for it on fourth down when it was completely ridiculous. So earlier this season, they're playing the Vikings, right? What was it, like 24-17?
Yep.
I think, yeah, 24-17. They're in their own territory.
No. They were down. It was like 28-20. Like they were down by 4, not 7. Or they were up by 4. I'm sorry. They were up by 4, not 7.
Oh, that's right. Okay. It was like 28-24. You're right. And so it's like late in the game, and they decided to go for it on like 4th and 1. And that might have iced the game. I think there was still too much time left for that to be the case. So it was kind of just like, we just want to maintain the ball and not give it back to them. But you're deep in your own territory. Okay. So, and I was reading an article today, and it was like, in their article, they were saying, well, we agreed with him going on for it on fourth down, but his play calling was horrible. So on that particular one, instead of putting the ball in Justin Herbert's hands, they just run the ball right up the middle. And of course it gets stuffed. They don't get and so it's a turnover on downs. And then Kirk Cousins throws the ball to a guy, and the guy in the end zone, the guy should have caught it. And then he gets out of his hands, and then the Chargers intercept it, and they win the game. So he got bailed out, but it was like, oh my God, that call was so freaking bad. Okay. And he was notorious, like you were saying, he was notorious for going for it in his own territory. He went for it. This was like 2 years ago. The Chargers were playing the Raiders, oddly enough. They were playing the Raiders, and I think the Chargers had a shot to get into the playoffs. They had to beat the Raiders, right?
Right.
And they were down like 17-14. And this is like early in the third quarter. He goes for it in his own territory. I think they ran the ball, and it got stuffed, because that seems to be his thing. He just runs the ball right up the middle on fourth down, and it doesn't work. So they ran the ball, it gets stuffed, and then they shut down the Raiders, but they were already in field goal range. So they kick a field goal, and they get up 20-14. They end up winning the game I think they won by 3 because they kicked a field goal in overtime. And also the Chargers had to stage this like furious comeback, which I gave a lot of credit to Justin Herbert because he kept converting long fourth downs to keep drives going to get them to tie the game. But if they didn't do that, maybe the Chargers could have won the game in regulation and gone to the playoffs. I mean, it was such just an atrocious fourth down call. So, yeah, it's just, if there was a Hall of Fame for bad fourth down calls, I think Brandon Staley is on the first.
My favorite, I mean, Clark, my personal favorite is, I don't think it was this season. I think it was last season. They went for it on, like, it was almost the end of the game, like you're saying. They were up by 2. They're up by 1 or 2 points. It was less than 3. They go for it. They're playing Cleveland. They go for it in their own territory, right? They don't get it. Wait, there was like less than 30 seconds left. Okay, but Cleveland gets the ball, and thank goodness they missed the field goal. Otherwise, they would have lost that game. So it's just, the guy was fantastic, and then I love the attitude. Like, a couple years ago when he first got the job, he's like, "No, listen, I'm going to be aggressive. This is what I think we should do, and that's the end of it, whatever." And then he's just, I don't know what happened. I don't know if somebody talked to him or whatever, but he's just kind of slowly kind of backed off of that. And, I mean, McDaniel was going for it on fourth down today that a few times that I thought were ridiculous. Now, granted, they had a huge lead, so it was different. But yeah, no, listen. And just the fact that the guy's supposed to be a defensive coach and the defense just continues to get worse and worse
God. I mean,
every single year. So, yeah, I think but and you hear a lot of people like the last day or two like talking about, well, how good is this job, blah blah blah. I'm like, people, like, this job's awesome. Like, I'm sorry, you have a quarterback. They have plenty of talent. Like, Nick Wright was on First Things First on Friday. Like, no, you know what? This is going to be a couple of years until they get this back together. This is not a quick whatever. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't agree with that at all. All they need to do is have a good draft coming up, and this team can make the playoff. They just made the playoffs last season.
Yeah.
Like, why are we acting like, so anybody who's stupid enough to tell you, this job's not that good, blah, blah, blah. The ownership isn't good, but that doesn't mean, like, you get the right guy in there, a guy who can help and I know everybody's going to be like, well, Justin Herbert, this is it's the ultimate, well, Justin Herbert's overrated, blah, 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 blah. Well, just watch this turnaround, Clark. Watch this turnaround. They don't have Brandon Staley anymore. Now, we'll see if they get an actual legit coach. They'll probably hire a coordinator that's cheap, and they'll probably suck anyway. But if we watch what happens if they hire the right coach, all the Justin Herbert doubters will start going, oh, wow, boy, I think Justin Herbert's pretty good. It's like,
well,
yeah.
And that's